Hello, all my neurodivergent peeps. My name is Deanna Gray, and this is Neurodivergent in a Neurotypical World. Now, this is my first time making a podcast, so please be patient and kind. Hopefully, I don't make too many mistakes, and I'm not the most boring person in the world to listen to. Today, I wanted to make it simple and just introduce myself and say how I discovered that I was autistic, when, reasons that I came to that conclusion. As I've looked back over my life, it explains so much. And I've spoken to a lot of other newly discovered autistic adults, and so often they feel the same way. They take a look back and they're like, "Oh my god, that explains so many things. This is why I did this, or this is why I did that. This is why I felt this way, or this is why I felt so different." It's everywhere, and that's exactly the position I'm in. I didn't discover that I was autistic too long ago. It was a few months anyway. It feels like yesterday, but a lot more time has passed. But honestly, time kind of blends into itself right now. Every day is very busy and chaotic and just mentally draining one way or another. So I kind of stopped counting. But simply put, I know that this will be a surprise to a lot of my friends and family. I didn't get around to telling everybody, mainly because telling one person at a time was just tedious and exhausting, and I hated every second of it. So, what makes better sense than to just tell everybody by making a podcast? Because, that's logical, right? Not so much, but that's okay. This will also be a surprise to some of my coworkers as well. I've been fairly open with the leaders of the real estate team that I belong to, but not everyone else on the team was aware of this up to this point. And when I spread this podcast far and wide, they'll be likely to figure it out. As long as they like listening to podcasts, they'll be likely to find it at some point. But until then, no problem. So I discovered that I was autistic, as I said, a few months ago, completely by chance. Growing up, I knew I was somewhat of an odd duck, but I just kind of accepted it for what it was. It was like, all right, well, I'm weird. I don't get along very well with people. And it's just the way I am. Whatever, right? I mean, my dad was kind of the same way, and I'll probably get into that in a later episode. He was his own flavor of a little strange, but we all are, I think. I really hope you can't hear my cat scraping around in the litter box. If you can, I'll probably be re-recording this when she decides not to be using her litter box in an inappropriate time. So I essentially discovered my condition by, honestly, I went on YouTube. I was ready to learn a new thing, as I am, because over the course of my life, I have always enjoyed learning new things, and this just happened to be the period where I was like, you know what? I really want to learn more about autism. No problem, right? It'll just, it's educational. I've only learned some of the more clinical aspects of it. I think I would like to hear from some people that actually have it, or look at some other sources, because anything that's clinical is usually very stereotypical, right? Like it's got the the kid's nonverbal, or they're rocking back and forth, or they line everything up, or whatever it is that they do that just makes them very clearly autistic. That's what you find when you go look up clinical resources, or you just type in "what is autism" in a search bar. So to me, YouTube made perfect sense. So I go looking and I find this episode on autism from the inside. It was called 63 Traits You Didn't Know Were Autism. And I watched it and I'm like, okay, I'm just watching. I'm like, yeah, oh, interesting. I relate to that. And that. And that. That too. And that. What's happening? I ended up with, for that episode anyway, I ended up with 52 traits out of 63. I ended up watching it 3 times and started counting, being like, what the heck's going on? And I was like, oh, this is a little bit I'm a little concerned. I wonder what that means. That seems a little significant. It's not just, one or two things, it's like a lot of the things. So I went around and I watched more YouTube videos and more YouTube videos, and more it was like, oh my god, I relate to all of these people. And I thought, okay, so first of all, autism is not what I thought it was. Second of all, what does it mean for me that I relate to these people? And one of the things a lot of these people were saying was, if you relate to what's being said here, you might want to think about, I'm like, okay. So what do I do with that? So I went around and I found Autism BC, and I'm like, okay, so if I take some of these tests, and depending on what it says, I'll figure out my next steps. So I took the tests. It was things like the autism quotient test and the CAT Q, and oh god, what was it called? It was the abbreviation was something like RAADS dash R. I could never remember the abbreviation no matter how hard I tried, but I did that test too. Basically, all the tests were like, yep, you definitely have some autism traits. I'm like, okay, that's pretty significant. And essentially it was telling me you should think about pursuing further testing. Okay, maybe I'll do that, maybe not. Screening was $500, and I'm like, oh god, who has just $500 sitting around for that kind of thing? But I was like, you know what, man, this has to be nuts. I gotta be overthinking this. Like, there's no way, right? So I decided to make a list, and I thought, okay, if I have more than my 52 that I originally had with the 63 traits, then maybe really I will seriously pursue this. So I went around and I'm listening to all these different videos, and I essentially compile a list of traits that I have that are autistic, theoretically. And I'm like, okay, so let's see, how many do I have? 102. Oh, there are a lot of things I either do or I did as a kid. So many that I just flat out didn't realize were not normal. I It's everything from eye contact. I didn't realize how little eye contact I actually made with people until I started thinking about it. I actually, anywhere I go, a grocery store, Walmart, uh, community center, anywhere, I will make any excuse possible to not look someone in the eye. Like, I might glance up a time or two, but then I'll just like busy myself with looking at something else anywhere else. If I have to make eye contact with someone, I can most of the time, but I just never do. Like, I swear to God, I would be the worst person in the world if the police ever had to come by, like, oh, do you have you seen this person? Um, I don't know. Maybe I might have seen their feet. Like, or they're like, oh, what color? What did this person look like? What color was their hair? Even worse, what color was their eyes? My God, I don't know. I didn't look. Like, I don't look at people. I also do a heck of a lot of stimming and didn't realize it. I just, for all of my life, I called it fidgeting. I fidget with everything. Anything I can get my hands on, no matter what it is. If I'm sitting in a classroom and there happens to be a pen on my desk, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm gonna take that pen apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it back together again and again and again through the whole class. Or I'll twirl things, or my personal favorite when I was younger, although the teachers hated it, those pens that have the different colors on them spread around the pen and you click them for the different color. And so you'll click, turn, click, turn, click, turn, click, turn. Yeah, I would do that the whole class until my teacher was like, okay, you need to stop doing that. It is so annoying. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I wouldn't realize I was doing it. Um, Growing up, I had the world's flattest affect and monotone. I remember my first job was at a video store in Logan Lake, which was the middle of nowhere, but whatever, right? I remember my bosses I had just started this job and I was doing my best and I was even enjoying it because, hey, it's learning something. I like learning. But I was getting complaints from customers because apparently I looked miserable or angry or whatever you want to call it, because you know the term, right? Resting bitch face? Yeah, I had it. Big time. Basically, I was putting no expression on my face whatsoever, and it didn't even occur to me that that was a thing that I needed to do. And even worse, I still was getting in trouble with my bosses because even though I was trying to put expression on my face, I couldn't feel my face from the inside out. So I was like, I don't actually know what expression is on my face unless I go overboard with it. That's really the only way I manage now, is like I have to. If you hear growling, that is just my cat. She's decided to get the zoomies in the middle of my podcast. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very, very much. You're not annoying at all. Back to what I was saying. I I have no idea mainly what my facial expression is doing. I literally, when I do my YouTube videos for my business, I have to glance at myself in the camera every now and again, despite the fact that I'm supposed to keep looking at the lens, because I don't know what my face is doing. If I don't look at myself and then I watch the video later, my face is just way too flat. There's nothing there, and it takes so much work to paste that expression on my face. My tone, same thing. I lost friends. People were angry with me a lot because I sounded angry or mean or like I didn't care or I was really blunt, and I was clueless. I had no idea. I watch the same shows over and over and over and over and over and over again, and I never stop. Like, I've been watching Supernatural, just I rewatch episodes, and I've been doing it for like a decade, or probably. Well, you know what? Let's be honest. The show had 15 seasons, and I've been doing it since the show came out. So Supernatural has been a thing for a very long time, and there's just so many other traits that I could go on for an eternity, but nobody wants to listen to me talk for an hour or more, I would assume. So let's not keep doing that. I can go into it in different videos or whatever, but uh I went through the screening. I ended up making the choice, and I said, you know what, it's worth it. The lady was very kind and ended up giving me some financial assistance option, just because I could not afford the $500 right out of the gate. So, because I need that money to eat food and everything else. So, but I really wanted to do this, and like, I want to know. I really want to know. Like, this is like a life-changing thing. I don't want to sit here wondering about it forever. So I did the screening, and the results confirmed, yeah, you are autistic. And while the screening is technically an informal diagnosis, it's enough for me to go to work and be like, this is my reality. It's enough for me to go out in life and society and be like, this is my reality. This is my identity as an autistic individual. And I can take that to a proper assessment down the road, $2,500 later, because if I didn't have 500, you can bet your butt I don't have 2,500 either. So later, but I could take that and utilize it, and as long as I find a psychologist who knows what they're doing, since adults mask really well, sometimes if you find the wrong person, they can say you're fine, oh, you don't have autism, except you do. And that's a really scary thing, because you don't want to find someone who invalidates your reality. You want to find someone that actually knows what they're doing backwards and forwards. So that is a future endeavor, but unfortunately for adults in particular, there are barriers. For children, that assessment is covered, but not for an adult. So, later on. But since then, I've entertained myself. I've watched some home videos of myself, noting some of my behaviors. Like, I'd flap things everywhere. I'd bounce around like I was on friggin' steroids or something. The screening test also revealed that I've got ADHD, by the way, not just autism. So I get to enjoy the lovely truth that I don't just have one, I have both, and they get to clash from time to time. No wonder, right? So I've been doing that, and it's a lot of mental energy that I've been expending to, figure everything out, but it's been worth it. And at the end of the day, it's also validating. Like, it tells me so much about my personal reality, and things that have happened to me in the past. The fact that I've always had a hard time working full time, even no matter what the job was, as long as there was like a heavy demand, or God help me if there were tons of customers, or the work just never stopped, I would max out at like 3 days a week. I could not do more, no matter how hard I tried. And if I tried to do more, within 2 weeks, I would get so burnt out that I would either mentally just like shut down, or I would physically shut down. Like, I would start getting sick, like gross sick, like, throwing up, fever, the whole bit. It's like my body could not do it. So when I tried to go into nursing in college, I thought, I mean, I do like people, and I like helping people, and I thought, well, I'll get used to it. Yeah, not so much. The stress of that job, there was no freaking way that I ever could have completed that job. And yet, I mean, to my credit, I made it 2 years. I did. I mean, there were a lot of days where I did have to take a mental health day, but I still managed. But I think the only reason I managed it is because I'm an academically strong student. So I made it to a point, and then I didn't. I cracked. I mean, there was a part of it where I had an instructor that was just flat out not. Her and I did not see eye to eye on anything, and she was not a supportive instructor for my needs at all. I may have been able to make it further if it hadn't been for her, because there was an instructor that covered her position for one day during that semester, and that instructor was a rock star, and I got along with her so well, and things were wonderful for that one day. And then the other instructor came back, and my life fell apart. I've been making a lot of determinations. What does this mean for my life in the workplace right now? Like, what can I do to accommodate myself? I have spoken to my team leaders, and I have asked them to be accommodating in certain ways. Things like, if my schedule has to change, please give me as much notice as possible. I can tolerate change to a point. But if you just drop it on me and be like, by the way, in an hour you have to be here, or by the way, it depends what it is, right? Like, if it's, can you please take this client to a house showing, that's probably fine. But like, if my whole day gets completely uprooted, I can manage it, but it really upsets me. Like, so I'd prefer to avoid it as much as possible. I've discovered that time blocking is a massive benefit to me, and I mean massive. Like, I will time block my entire day. Otherwise, I float around and I do other things, and I suppose that's the ADHD kicking in, because here I am. I could be starting one thing, and I'm stereotypically, hey, squirrel, out the window, right? And then I get distracted and I go do another thing, and then, oh yeah, you know what? While I'm doing that thing, I remember I need to go do some other thing, and then I go do that thing. And by the end of the day, I have done little pieces of everything, but I haven't actually gotten a lot done. Versus when I time block it, I am a lot better. Like, it reminds me every half hour, be like, this is what you should be doing. And then, by the way, in half an hour, this is what you'll be doing next. It is so helpful. Like, it keeps me on track. So every time my brain decides, I want to drift off and do something else, the system is timed in such a way that it's like, no, you're not. By the way, this is what you're doing. And it's like, oh yeah, thanks for keeping me on track. So, and then finally, it's just, recognizing my own capacity limits. I hurt myself for years trying so hard to push myself beyond what I was capable of, not realizing that I had a limit for myself, a neurodivergent limit, not just oh, I don't want to do it, I'm really tired. It's, I have a limit, and if I push it, I'll burn out, and then I'll just crash completely, and I will be useless to myself, to anybody else, and I need to be really mindful of that. Otherwise, it'll all fall apart. So that is essentially my situation right now. I mean, I could go into 1,000 times more detail and everything, and in future episodes I probably will, depending on what we're talking about. I'm thinking I could do episodes on, if what does it mean if you think one of your parents is autistic? Because oftentimes, if you have an autistic child, usually, not always, but usually, one of the parents is autistic as well. It and since autism is a spectrum, it may not be super obvious. It may not look the same. Anything, like it can look like anything, and we can 100% do an episode on that and 100 other things. In the meantime, I'll keep learning, and I want to keep you all in the loop with me, and I hope some of you relate to me, and maybe anything I come across, maybe anything I say might be helpful to you, potentially. But legal medical disclaimer that I do have to put in here: I am not a medical professional. Once upon a time I was, but either way, still, I was never a mental health care worker. I was never a psychologist. I was never a psychiatrist. I never was or am anyone who can diagnose, treat, or recommend therapeutic intervention for symptom management of any condition of any kind. These are strictly my own experiences and challenges, which you may or may not find relatable or helpful. Always consult the proper medical authorities before attempting a new treatment regime. Always, always, always. Don't just, if it has a potential of harming you, especially, don't just jump in and be like, hey, I want to give it a shot. If you need to talk to someone first, do it. Don't take anything I say with a grain of salt. Don't just take it and run. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have an awesome day. Please be your truest self and don't apologize for it. I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.